Kurt Shaver, Chief Sales Officer at Vengreso, and I'm going to be talking to people at SAP about some of the social selling successes that they've had. And here with me now, I've got James Kelley. James is with the SAP Success Factors Group in London. Hey, welcome, James.
Hi, Kurt.
Well, James, let's talk a little bit about what you do, what your role is, and then we'll dive into how you've used social selling yourself, and then how you encourage your team to do it. So first, give us a little introduction, James Kelley, and what you do for SAP Success Factors.
Sure. So I'm a sales development manager for EMEA and MEE. For Success Factors, I have a team of sales development reps, SDRs, and our main objective is to help the account executives, the AEs, get into their accounts for those initial conversations, those first meetings across all segments, whether it's net new name, dormant, upper general business, all kind of large enterprise accounts. But we use a variety of methods to get in, phone and email being two of the most obvious, but increasingly, and something that I've looked to leverage has been social selling. So things like LinkedIn to help get the attention of people to get us in the door.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for that setup. So before we talk a little bit about your team, let's just talk about your own journey into social selling. So tell us kind of like when you feel like you got started using some of these techniques, and kind of what was your initial experiences and thoughts as you started to, again, employ some of these modern techniques revolving social networks.
So I think when I started, I was heavily sort of kind of phone influenced and using email as well.
Mm-hmm.
But then I found...
Were you an SDR
Yes.
yourself at that time? Okay.
Yeah. So that worked well, and I was very successful with it. But increasingly, I was finding people knew more about SAP, or they thought they knew more about SAP, and there were those kind of preconceptions and misconceptions that would play out. And so I started to use things like LinkedIn to help me make SAP Success Factors as a brand more visible, but also to learn about what other people were saying and doing as a sort of creative way to get into those accounts that I was targeting, and to kind of give myself a better chance to get into those accounts by saying the things that kind of other people were saying, the things that they really cared about. Because when I started to reflect on what prospects were saying and could reflect that back, my sort of rates of success and chances of success greatly increased.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it sounds like you were really using it as an opportunity for engagement, to talk to them about relevant items. Now, is your target prospect mostly in the HR function or different functions in an organization?
Predominantly HR, and kind of line of business HR, like talent, learning, recruiting,
Right.
but also given SAP's kind of heritage, IT also plays a big part. And when it comes to things like new technologies, things like analytics, increasingly IT plays a key part in that.
Yeah.
But it's important to also look at those kind of people as a way into an account.
Yeah, so it's really interesting that you mentioned that. I hear a lot of people that are getting benefits out of social networking, obviously things like LinkedIn, because when they're in your situation that you just described, wherein they have to get multiple decision makers to agree, and sometimes cross-departmental decision makers, that one of the values, of course, of LinkedIn is that you can use it to navigate and investigate and maybe find who are the people on the org chart, right? Who are the people maybe in the line of business at HR that might be doing it, but who are the people in technology, the IT group that have to make sure, oh, this is compatible with our existing systems, and oh, this meets our security requirements, and oh, all the other things that could potentially maybe derail or delay a deal. So did you find that using social networks helped you identify who would be maybe on a buying committee?
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't necessarily get involved in that kind of buying committee sort of stage. That's
that would
for
be
the
when
AE.
You'd pass it on to the AE at that point, right? Yeah.
But what I'd often find is that whereas HR might have said, no, that doesn't work, no, where kind of Oracle and everything else, comes from IT.
Right.
If HR was saying no, I might go to someone different in IT and they'd say, actually, we've had requests from other areas of the business to evaluate things or look at things. Success factors might be a good potential fit there.
Yeah.
So even if one person said no, before it might have been, okay, we can't do anything. But then you'd find 6 months down the line, another competitor had got in there and sold something. And you're thinking, well, why has that happened? So getting around HR and IT, and in some cases operations or things like that, it would just allow us to get a foot in the door and kind of raise success factors profile within that account, even if they weren't in an active buying cycle, but they were in the kind of early stages of thinking about a problem which needed addressing, whether that was like a point solution or more broader, like a suite solution.
Yeah. So when you're talking about engagement, you were talking about raising the visibility of success factors and that type of thing. Are you getting content that is supplied to you by the company in most instances, or are you just finding things yourself because you're involved in the industry of talent and employee performance, that you're just finding yourself on the internet?
It's a mixture. We've got a couple of good internal tools that we use. Obviously, there's things like Grapevine that collate articles for us, things like VoiceStorm, which I find is very useful. But I also look at some of the industry magazines, talent, talent.com, things like that, and also use things like our Success Factors YouTube channel to pull up kind of customer stories and videos. So I have a mix of stuff that is going out across my networks, and it's not just SAP centered stuff. So it kind of gives a balance, and it helps present me and kind of my own brand as something that is more relevant to everyone, with kind of comments included and some insights, rather than just repeating kind of the marketing stuff that comes out, which is very valuable, but is also balanced by some stuff that I've picked up elsewhere.
Yeah, and that's a really important point that I think is worth emphasizing, because what you're taking it to a higher level because you are mixing in industry information. It allows you to bring your own individual level of service to your network, to add your personality into it, sometimes by how you're commenting on things. And just go beyond maybe what they would be getting off the Success Factors blog. So I think that mix of industry content, and it also really positions you as more objective and kind of with your finger on the pulse of what's happening in the industry. So kudos for that element to, again, raise the game beyond just your industry content. So let's shift a little bit and talk about now your role as a sales manager. So when did you become sales manager for the SDR group?
It was April last year.
Okay, congratulations.
Thank you.
Belated congratulations. So in this area of social selling, talk to me about what you're doing as a sales manager to manage your people, to help them build these skills, to encourage them, to to recognize maybe some successful skills that maybe one person is doing, and then replicate that across the team. So talk to us a little bit about social selling management for the Success Factors SDR team.
I think that's a slightly harder question to answer, in that each of the markets or countries that we cover, they're very different. And one of the biggest challenges we have is having content in different languages. So the kind of things that I encourage the team to do is to kind of really engage and start to follow, their key accounts, their target accounts, so they can start to see what is front of mind for their prospects, their accounts, and then they can start to kind of almost replicate the language they use to gain more interest. Because invariably, if a prospect is talking in a certain language, certain words, and we're kind of replicating that, all of a sudden it becomes more appealing, and less about SAP or success factors specifically, but more about the issues and the challenges that their target audience is facing.
Okay. Do your, in terms of tools, are your people simply following their target companies through the free LinkedIn? Are they using Sales Navigator? Are they listening to their prospects some other way?
Yeah, they all have Navigator licenses, which is really, really useful.
Right. Yeah.
And
to separate all the noise from the normal homepage feed, you can really filter it down to the accounts and people you're interested in.
Exactly. And one of the things that we had been talking about is the importance of following customers, because when people leave a customer and go to a new company, we have potentially got a good advocate there.
Right.
But also following people that were at SAP and have left to join a different organization, because SAP has a big network. And invariably people are very happy to help former SAP colleagues when it comes to getting referrals or getting guidance on who best to speak with in an account that we may not know much about.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Well, what about, I'm always curious, is there any specific pushback or obstacles or objections, that you've heard people say on the team, or maybe they're worried about how much time it's going to take, or they're worried about, oh, I'm not sure who all this is going to, and I don't want to look bad, right? I mean, is there any obstacle that you've heard that maybe you found a way to overcome or to dismiss with people?
I think that the biggest challenge is maybe the time it takes to kind of build that brand, and the worry of having enough valid content to share. And that was certainly one of the big challenges I had when I started with kind of social selling.
Yeah, I mean, you started pretty early.
Yeah, but I think the thing for me is it was about little and often. So, maybe 10 minutes in the morning, just kind of catching up on what was top of mind on my feed within LinkedIn. Yeah. Maybe posting an article or a web link or a video to my wider network during the day. And then maybe spending, 5-10 minutes in the afternoon reading some articles, adding a couple of comments, just trying to build awareness around the brand rather than dedicating, a couple of hours to it, and worrying about how much content I had to push out.
Yeah. After all, you're still a salesperson, right? You're not in the marketing communications department. Right. You've got a quota and customers to connect to and things like that.
Yeah. And I think if I took the social selling aspect as part of my regular work in terms of calling and emailing, then it just formed part of my natural day-to-day.
Yeah, right. That's the key, is to get it to be a regular habit, part of your standard operating procedure, not as this separate thing, but it's just a normal part of checking in. That's great. So let me ask, people always like specific stories, right? Specific success stories and things like that. So I'm wondering if you can tell us of any maybe specific story. Again, I realize the outcome of your efforts and your team's efforts is really setting an appointment, but you guys are the icebreakers that are kind of getting the sales cycle started. So can you share any specific success story, maybe either that you had individually or that somebody on your team had utilizing some social selling technique?
I think we've had a couple. One was from a company called the Rugby Football League.
Uh-huh.
They just posted on LinkedIn saying they were kind of evaluating HRS systems and wanted to tap into the broader LinkedIn network in
Okay.
terms of advice and guidance.
Yeah.
I was able just to comment on it and say, look,
How
success
did how
factors.
did you happen to hear it? How did you recognize it or hear it or see it kind of thing? How did it flag to you?
It just came up on my feed.
Okay.
I can't remember whether it was a saved search or someone that I knew had
Okay.
commented on it.
Hmm.
But I could just put a comment in there recommending that success factors be an
Yeah.
option.
Hey, check us out.
Um, yeah, I flagged that we worked with City Football Group, so a similar sporting organisation of
Okay.
a similar size,
Yeah.
and then I passed it on to the relevant AE
Hmm.
and one of the SDRs on my team, and yeah, they booked a meeting and identified an opportunity out of it.
Yeah, great. Fantastic. So that's really kind of the value of social. Well, it's first off, it's social listening, and then it's social engagement, right? So you
Yeah,
discover this trigger event because they put it out there on the network. So
yeah,
that is a great success story. Well, I'm going to wrap this up and just give you the chance. Again, this is going to be going out to your colleagues, SAP sellers worldwide, variety of different divisions and things like that. So if you could offer maybe any kind of advice in this arena of either, it might just be, hey, here's a basic thing, like don't forget to do this basic technique every day, or it might be this, little secret technique that you've found works particularly well. But is there any sort of like advice or best practice that you might offer to people around the area of social selling?
I think the three things for me are it's not always about the selling aspect. It's about building relationships
Hmm.
and kind of building your brand on LinkedIn. I think it's important to keep your kind of profile up to date, um, and not just sell but kind of contribute. So share thoughts, share ideas, comment on things, and kind of grow your network, because it's really your own network where all the kind of good leads and good insights can come from. So yeah, I'd always look to be kind of growing your network as you look to kind of improve with social selling.
Hmm. Yeah, well, those are all great tips. Definitely. I mean, growing your professional network is something that is going to serve many people for years and years to come in their career. So, I think part of the reason that social selling is so attractive to a salesperson is they can see how it can continue to pay dividends, for years and years. So, James Kelley, Sales Development Manager, SAP Success Factors in London. I want to thank you for this interview. As I indicated, you'll probably be seeing this in a couple of forms: blog, webinars, maybe, and even some video pieces. So, thanks so much for being an interview guest here.
Brilliant. Thanks, Kurt. Have a good weekend.